To order. To the flag, the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mates, would you lead us in the invocation? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Just thank you for your blessings in our lives, and for this busy day. I just lift the poll workers before you. I ask you to be with us during this meeting, just lift them up and strengthen them. And thank you and bless them for their service. Ask your blessing upon this meeting that we be here, Father. We invite you in. Amen. Amen. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let me get to my appropriate agenda here. Mel, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hankins,
Present.
Commissioner Levanway,
Here.
Commissioner Mason.
Here.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Here.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Here.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Here.
Commissioner Turnbull,
Here.
Commissioner Mapes.
Here. Sorry. That's everybody. Okay. Just on a side note, commissioners, I would remind you to please be close to your microphone, not right on it like this, but close to your microphone when speaking, because there's a lot of folks that tune in that need to hear your thoughts. Okay, I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I will make a motion. I'll support.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Levanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnbull,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Review and approval of the meeting minutes from October 1st, 2024. Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Moved and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Any changes, corrections? Hearing none, can we have a roll call there?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Levanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnbull.
I abstain.
Motion carried.
Okay. And that moves us, ladies and gentlemen, to public comment. If you would like to address the Board of Health, we would ask you to step to the podium, state your name and where you reside. We'll give you 3 minutes to address the board. I'll give you the friendly 30-second remaining notice. Would anyone like to address the Board of Health? Yes, ma'am. Come on down.
Good morning. I'm Linda Yarrow with Charlevoix County and retired health officer. I just wanted to take a minute today to thank Dan Thorell for his leadership as the health officer and his time as deputy health officer and director of environmental health over the past several years. Dan became the health officer during difficult times and has led the board, staff, and community to move past the pandemic while maintaining services of the health department and continuing to address new public health initiatives. I know Dan won't be far. We'll continue to see his leadership through state and Northern Michigan public health initiatives. And I just want to thank Dan, and we wish him well with the Benzie-Leland District Health Department. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I was going to give you an extra couple minutes because you're bragging on my friend Dan, so thank you. Would anyone else like to address the Board of Health? All right, public comment is now closed. That moves us to staff reports. Who's this new guy? Dan Thorell.
Well, thank you. I'm blushing a little bit over here, so. Okay, so as my last report here, I just wanted to give the board an update about the lawsuits that have been going on, and just make sure everybody was aware. And that was probably one of the more important things, writing this board report just to kind of put it out there in the, public realm and for the board to see where we're at. So, many of these lawsuits have been ongoing since late 2021. Starting with the Let Them Breathe versus the Health Department of Northwest Michigan and Gaylord Community Schools. This lawsuit was filed in late 21. It was filed by an unincorporated association of parents of school-aged children. Originally, the plaintiffs filed for an injunction, which was denied by the circuit court, and then the plaintiffs filed for a declaratory relief. Ultimately, the circuit court dismissed the case as moot because the masking order was rescinded in February of 22. The plaintiff then filed an appeal with the Michigan Court of Appeals, which in June 23 agreed with the circuit court that the case was moot. The plaintiff has since asked the Michigan Supreme Court to hear the case. And that last sentence that I wrote last week has now been updated. I received an email from our attorney, and the Supreme Court has decided not to hear the case. So that lawsuit is done. So, next one is concerned parents of Emmett County, similar lawsuit regarding the mask mandate that was issued in 2021. So this was, again, late 21, it was filed by an unincorporated association of parents of school-aged children in Emmett County. The case was dismissed in 2022 due to lack of progress. The plaintiff filed an appeal with the Michigan Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals agreed with the plaintiff, stating that the lower court erred in dismissing the case for lack of progress. So it was kicked back down to the lower court. And then on March 12th, 2024, the Emmett County Circuit Court heard the case, ruled from the bench, and dismissed the case due to mootness. And the plaintiff recently filed an appeal with the Michigan Court of Appeals. I don't know at this point, if the bearing on the Let Them Breathe case, the Supreme Court not hearing it, if that'll change anything there, that's yet to be seen. So the last one, Warren Murphy Hospitality, Iron Pig, doing business as the Iron Pig versus the Health Department of Northwest Michigan. So the way this began, the lawsuit was served in August of 23. The Iron Pig was seeking a declaratory judgment to invalidate several statutes of the Michigan Public Health Code. After oral arguments in early 24, the circuit court issued an opinion and order in the case. The Iron Pig's challenges to 2455, 5201, and 5203 were dismissed due to a lack of present case or controversy. The challenge to 2451 failed because the statute has a presumption of constitutionality that the Iron Pig failed to overcome. And then the last one, the challenge to 2453 succeeded on the grounds that the statute constitutes an unconstitutional delegation of powers. So based on these rulings, I think as we've discussed before, the health department can no longer rely on 2453 to address an epidemic, but it's only affects our jurisdiction here, the 4 counties in our jurisdiction. The board, there is some opinion about whether it affects everybody within the circuit court jurisdiction, but that is uncertain at this point. The Board of Health, as we went through this, decided not to appeal this decision. However, the Iron Pig did file an appeal with the Michigan Court of Appeals regarding 2451, which is imminent danger is the name of that statute. And then later, the Iron Pig sent a request to the Michigan Supreme Court to actually bypass the Court of Appeals. This request was denied. However, this action did result in some increased legal fees beyond what was expected. Currently, the briefs have been filed with the Michigan Court of Appeals, and the case will likely be heard in 2025, early 2025. Is there any questions about the lawsuits? I did put together some, if you're interested, the numbers, as far as what we've spent between fiscal year 23 or 22, 23, and 24. It's been a total between these three lawsuits of $116,000 approximately.
116.
Yeah, 116,962. So I guess it's closer to 117. And most of that in fiscal year 24 was as a result of the Iron Pig lawsuit. It's about 28,000. So I would expect going into fiscal year 25, the other law, I mean, we won't have any expenses from Let Them Breathe. That's done. Concerned Parents of Emmett County. A lot of that work has been done. The briefs have already been completed by the attorney. I think we'll have, when it does go to the Court of Appeals, if it still goes to the Court of Appeals, but I don't have any indication that it's not, is that, the attorney's time arguing the case and preparing for that. And then we'll see where that goes. Definitely, going into fiscal year 25, the Iron Pig case will be the most costly because that's where the time is going to be spent.
But there again, the briefs have all been filed with the Court of Appeals already, so that they will
Right,
be doing that
right,
again.
Right. Yep, exactly. And it just depends on the outcome of that. And then, if it does, they take it to the Supreme Court, then that could be something that is considered. Right. So. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to statewide septic code. You hear me talk about this almost every meeting. So I apologize for that, but it's important information. So since the last Board of Health meeting, we got a draft 9 of the bills. And this was shared with our stakeholders group, working with the bill sponsors, Representative Skaggs and Senator Singh. And a meeting was held in Lansing, which I attended on October 24th to discuss the new drafts and address concerns. As a member representing MELF, I continued to voice our concerns about the frequency-based evaluations instead of trigger-based. There is a risk component and the timeline has been extended. 3 years for Eagle to promulgate rules and then another 5 years for things to start. So, I mean, there is kind of a buildup time-wise, which they are basically saying this is time to, basically build the infrastructure and get ready. Fundamentally, the core principles that were developed between Michigan Association of Local Public Health and the Environmental Health Directors Association, this was done in 2019. That counters what our concerns are, and it specifies what our concerns are about having frequency-based versus trigger-based type inspections. And we would much prefer to see something that is based on time of transfer, and the risk-based component is good too when you have really old systems or, you're within a certain number of feet to surface water. We could live with those, but it's going to be really kind of difficult as the bill sponsors are introducing the substitute bills to the committees within the next, or to the committee within the next probably few weeks before they break for November. We're working on a letter that addresses our concerns and, definitely is not going to be in support as the bill is currently written, but addressing the concerns, based on what I'm just explained about our core principles. Again, it's kind of a tricky position to be in because ultimately we do recognize that, having uniform standards across state is good, but, some of the big things with the evaluation component and mandated inspections of existing septic systems is just kind of our area that we have a lot of concern. There's another meeting coming up. This one is virtual on Friday, which I'll be attending, and, hopefully we'll be able to get some more information, but it doesn't appear that they are budging off of requiring the frequency base, which would be every 10 years after the initial inspection is done. Also, I did record a podcast. I don't know if anybody got a chance to watch it. It was on the Michigan Association of Counties Podcast 83 program. Kind of gives a good summary of, where, how this thing started and where we are now. It's kind of, there's a lot of information. The podcast is probably a little bit longer than what it should have been, but I was rambling on. And it addresses those concerns that we have from local health departments. So any questions about that?
Yes, Dan.
Yes.
Now, I really don't understand the lack of consistency with the state health code, because we're going to be meeting again Friday over an issue for the Sanitary Board of Appeals. And everything that's being discussed has to do with state health codes setting the standards that we either have to approve or deny in a particular case. So where does the lack of clarity, the standardization exist at the state level? What?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, no, I understand your question. So your Sanitary Board of Appeals, you're going to have a meeting, and that's based on our own sanitary code here for the Health Department of Northwest Michigan, which encompasses our 4 counties. The other, other health departments, we have 45 health departments in the state. So the other 44 health departments, they all have a different sanitary code. And they're not consistent. Some are stronger than others. Some have better protections than others. There are some that are very, as far as their environmental protections and public health protections are really kind of lacking, for lack of a better term, where you can actually put systems into groundwater. And a lot of it has to do with the politics of the area, the economic development of the area, and what they have available for, their soil conditions and groundwater conditions and whatnot. And in some areas, I mean, I think if, a unified sanitary code with minimum standards, depending on what those are, it's going to definitely be more expensive and more challenging to build septic systems in certain areas of the state. We won't have that problem here. We already have one of the more stringent sanitary codes. And I think that was due to, a long time ago, in the early 70s, that, our leaders saw that it was important to protect our surface waters, and, how important it was to our economy and tourism and whatnot, and public health, that they made decisions back then that are very protective of those resources and public health. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but a lot of it has to do with, there's so many a lot of variation between the different sanitary codes.
No, I thought that what we were following were some state regulations that steered this in the direction it was going.
Well, our own sanitary code, it was determined locally. When that was developed, the most recent update to that was in 2017. And basically, whatever changes were made were approved by the Board of Health, and then each individual county had to approve that sanitary code. That's how it works. So it's definitely, grounded in more local control. And there's a lot of health departments and jurisdictions out there that is another big issue with statewide sanitary code, is because it's a loss of local control, over something that really affects a lot of people.
Well, and a huge part of that, when the state does things, they may or may not attach any funding to address
Right.
their new code.
That is, yeah, definitely a huge part of what of our criticism is, and something that we wanted them to add into the bills is some language regarding funding. Like, if this is not properly funded, then it's not going to be implemented, something to that effect.
Yeah.
But, we have Headley, but that doesn't seem to matter in a lot of cases, but
Well, I think under your estimate or perhaps Jeremy's, there was going to be a need for 10 to 12 additional inspectors,
Right.
which means 10 to 12 bodies, 10 to 12 computers and places to plug them in, 10 to 12 vehicles, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
It's not just oh yeah, we're going to get this done. It's how are we going to pay for this?
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of other factors too. I think, the compliance issue was a big one because I just don't think people are going to willingly, comply. And then we have a state law, and then like, how is that supposed to get enforced? And, local prosecutors are having a hard time even filling their assistant prosecuting attorney positions. Right. And they have stacks of, criminal, complaints, and cases on their desks that they can't even get to. So I
Right.
think this would probably be a low priority. And I've asked a few of them and they confirm that, my suspicion about that. So this
Okay.
is another one of the concerns.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Dan on his report or anything else?
Oh, one last thing. Just wanted to update the board about we were awarded the Engaging Wellness Grant that was approved last board meeting. And so work will be beginning, and Janine, the Director of Community Health, will provide updates as the program progresses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody have any questions on the written report submitted by our directors?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Turnbull, go ahead.
Make sure I'm close to this. I have a question for Dr. Meyerson. People within Otsego County have asked me a couple of times if there's any further information regarding equine encephalitis or the bird flu within our region. Have there been any updates, or is it still the same that information that you put out, I think a couple months ago?
Yeah, I believe for the bird flu or avian flu, I've not heard of any further cases. There certainly haven't been any reported, or any animals, whether poultry or dairy cows or whatnot. We've not had any reports in our jurisdiction. And then the question with arbovirus, Eastern equine encephalitis, and other viruses, I don't believe there's been any more cases identified in wildlife in Otsego County since we last reported. Has there?
I believe there was another case of West Nile.
Yeah,
but
West
it was-
Nile, but
right,
not Triple E.
right.
And that, if you can actually, they update their website every week. So what's in my medical director report was October 4th. I actually was just looking at it. They updated it November 1st, and you'll see, all of the numbers are a little bit higher. But and there was actually a human case of Jamestown Canyon virus in Alpena County, which is the first time I've ever heard of that particular virus and that disease affecting a human in northern Michigan. So that virus seems to be spreading as well, but still, it's in the wildlife, and human cases do occur. And in our area, they're pretty rare, but it's still possible. And with the continued warm weather, there's still, as long as there's mosquitoes out there in the fall, there's still a continued risk. And that's why we just talk about the standard things people can do to reduce their risk to prevent mosquito bites and things of that nature.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for our directors? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to committee reports. Commissioner LeVanway.
Personnel, Finance Committee met. We went over the September bills. And I'll make a motion. The Finance Committee met to review the bills and employee expenses and would like to make a motion for the full board to approve of the September 2024 bills in the amount of $1,242,895.14 and the September 2024 employee expenses of $21,143.05.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please, Mel?
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnbull,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason. I'm sorry, Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Levan Way.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Vote early and vote often, right, Henry?
Fitness heard.
Today's the day, isn't it?
Today is the day. By the way, that was a joke, ladies and gentlemen. You should only vote one time. Program and Evaluation Committee,
We have nothing to report.
right? Moves us to unfinished business, the health officer recruitment update. Says Commissioner Hankins. Okay. We're having a meeting immediately following this meeting. Probably next, Mel, did you reserve the room next door? You know, if not, it's fine. Okay. Myself, Mr. Van Alstine, Mr. Mapes, Mr. Mason, will be having a meeting immediately after this meeting, to review applications, I think, and don't quote me here, but I think we have like 13 or 15 applications, for Mr. Thorell's position. Actually, no, it's not. It's for our health officer's position. And, that's that update. And then we move on to an interim health officer appointment. This is Mr. Thorell's last meeting with us, and we need to make an appointment for his interim. We need to send a letter to the state advising them of the course of action that we want to pursue. They will say yay or nay. And it's kind of a formality, but it isn't. It is a state approval process. So having said that, we do have our deputy health officer who is present. I believe was it in this meeting or in a different meeting, Holly, that you said you would be willing to serve if we were to appoint you as an interim health officer?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Van Alstine.
I don't have any. You got it here listed as an action item,
Mm-hmm.
but I have nothing here that tells us anything about what we're gonna do. There's no motion, there's no nothing. How do we move forward with this with not having any information to review ahead of time?
I can say that, and I don't know, Holly, were those emails between you and I? Okay, I don't know if they were shared with other board members or not, but if we were to appoint Holly as our interim health officer, she would like to see an increase in her salary. And I appreciated your email clarifying. Initially, she said she would like a $10,000 pay increase. And she then subsequently said to me, that's based over a calendar year, not a one-time lump sum payment. So I appreciated that clarification. So she does serve currently as our deputy health officer. And if anyone, I'm not sure where we go from here, folks.
So
What's the
you're
pleasure of the
looking at-
board?
You're looking at $400 a pay period. Is that what the figure is?
I forget
Yes.
exactly. Go ahead, Holly.
Yeah, it's would be 385.
Okay, so
Mhm.
about $385 per pay period that she serves in the interim role.
Yeah, gross.
Gross.
Yes.
And that would all be based off of, or be determined once the state says that she can serve as that position.
Dan, do you remember, I would assume yes. Dan, do you remember the approval process or the time period that it took as far as approval on your interim spot?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take long. So, I mean, basically today, later today, I can type up the letter to have you sign. We can ship it off, send it off to Laura Daler and Bellier at the state, who's the director of local health services. They review it and it'll get approved. I mean, basically an interim health officer goes in 6 months increments, basically. And it doesn't have the stringent requirements as the full-time health officer, although Holly does, meet it regardless. So I don't anticipate any issues on there, and I think it'll just mostly just be a quick turnaround. And that would be effective November 25th, which would be the first day I'm not the health officer here. But
Okay.
it does need to be in place, like the state MDHHS, the rules, state that the counties have to have a health officer, and that we just need to have that in place November 25th.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
how long would be, is the appointment for a certain amount of time, or is it just indefinite until a new health officer is appointed? Understand?
I do understand, and it's a good question. I think that it would have to be an agreement between us and our interim health officer that that would be subject to when a new health officer is put in place, whoever that person may be.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would be the interim.
So
Like I
the
said,
approval-
it could be as long as 6 months, and then I think you have to like reach out to MDHHS and you could get another 6 months. But it would be, interim
Up
and
to 6 months,
up
not an
to,
automatic 6
right,
months.
exactly. So it's just they give temporary approval up to 6 months for an acting health officer. And then, basically as soon as you select the full-time health officer, that whatever date that starts, the interim would end.
Okay. That
Yeah.
answers
Makes
the
sense.
question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Ma'am?
Is it required that we have an interim
Yes,
by the state?
yes,
Okay, so we have to have somebody until we have a health.
right.
Do
Right.
we have to have a deputy?
No. I mean, basically it can be whoever the board, it's up to the board. The board, is the employer of the health officer. It's more or less like the acting health officer. Okay. And that's how it's specified in the administrative rules, which I think I sent out to the board. It's been a while, like six weeks ago, or maybe longer than that. But the temporary acting health officer is just that, but it is required.
So the state
Right.
requires a health director, but not a deputy. Is that,
It does not specify that
Okay.
it has to be, because some health departments don't have deputy health officers, like
Okay.
really, really small ones. So, I mean, my recommendation, is that Holly is the acting health officer until the full-time health officer can be selected. It just makes sense. Her and I work closely together. We meet at least weekly, if not more. And she's up to speed on, everything that I have going on. And we, share that communication with each other frequently. So
okay, so now I have a question. When it comes to the money, is it $385 per pay period or is it $10,000 for 6 months?
It's $385 per pay period.
So the shortest amount of time may be a month and the longest would be 6.
The approval from the state is for an interim health officer up to 6 months time period. If we hired somebody tomorrow, which we're not going to, but if we did, this would be a moot discussion. So if
Right.
we hired somebody in December or January, The
That's
interim
just
health
$385
officer would,
per pay period.
correct,
Okay.
gross before taxes.
Right.
Any
Yeah.
further questions?
I
Sir?
have one more question. Being, it will be an interim health officer appointment, what is the work schedule look like for that as far as in Charlevoix, I'm assuming, or in Gaylord, what's the work schedule look like as far as on premise or from home or however that works, Dan?
Well, I think our interim health officer, just like Mr. Thorell, would certainly be carrying a cell phone and be available
Correct.
to the board at any time. As far as a specific office space that she might occupy, the main health office is here in Charlevoix. I would assume that that would continue, although we do have facilities in all 4 counties.
But what's that schedule look like? What, I mean, is it 3 days a week in the office and 2 remote? What's that? I mean, you can't manage, as you well know, you can't manage people remotely. You have to be on premise to be able to manage people.
Okay. So I think that's good for clarification to understand. Holly, I'll let you respond.
Sure. So my current work arrangement is 3 days in the office and 2 remote.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mapes.
By remote, does that mean at home or
Correct.
traveling?
That would be working from my home remotely. And then, I mean, honestly, it's usually more so I'm traveling either to Charlevoix or Gaylord or to another office location. Changes week to week depending on the meeting schedule.
So the staff won't know what days you will be here.
No, they will know. We send that out internally every week.
Oh, so they do know in
Mhm.
advance. So if somebody has a problem and they can't reach you, is Scott going to be the person they contact? Because that may happen.
I'm not understanding.
If you were unavailable and the staff member had an issue, the question was, are they going to call me?
Oh, like if I'm on PTO or sick or something?
Yeah.
There's
Then
no deputy.
So do we have,
Well, I would have someone that would cover for me during that time. Probably our most senior director would be able to, take on that call in my potential.
we would
absence.
need to have, I think it's a fair point that Dawn makes. We would need to have a
Appointed person.
specified director who's going to be serving in your absence. And then that question becomes, do they get the 385 also, or?
Yeah, well, that's to be determined.
Yeah, I think that would be very short term.
Mhm.
In the past, like when Dan transitioned, we had some just internal shifting to help carry the load of that while we were all, managing that process. So I think it would be very short term if it needed at all.
Okay. I'll be honest, I hope the interim spot is very short term. I don't like to have, I don't like to have the inflexibility or the instability of not having somebody permanently appointed. Terry, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Holly as our interim health officer with an increase in $385 per pay period up until the time that we hire a full-time health director.
And authorizing me to author a letter to the state. Regarding that.
That's up to them to do that. All
Okay.
we need to do is make the motion to appoint her as the interim health officer.
I just wanted pointed out that I'm going to sign a letter
Yes.
sent to the state.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Van Alstine, seconded by Mr. Mapes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mel, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Levanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Yes, please.
Motion carried.
Congratulations. On November 26th, don't call me. Call Holly. Okay. That takes care of unfinished business, moving us to new business. Medical Director contract with Benzie Leelanau District Health Department, Mr. Thoreau.
Thank you. So this came from the Board of Health at Benzie District Health Department after the health office. So let me just give you a little background. So the medical director and health officer were combined in the same professional services agreement contract. And there was language in there that said if one or the other was terminated, that the other would still persist in that same contract. The current contract as it states, or as it stands right now, will expire May 31st of 2025. The board there wanted to just clean up the contract as it is right now, and put some things in there, some protections based on the attorney's advice about things like if the medical director, and when I say medical director, I'm not talking about Dr. Myerson, just if the medical director, if there was performance issues for one, or if the medical director lost his or her license to practice medicine, or ability to prescribe and things of that nature.
It's the position, not the person.
It's the position, not the person, right? So it's more or less like if, if the medical license was lost and they were no longer legally able to be the medical director, per the public health code, then the agreement would terminate at that point. Things like that. There was also some consent things in there for the medical director to sign. I think Exhibit 3 was added, where more or less, the medical director, whoever that happens to be, would sign that saying that they understand that their licenses and everything else, information, professional information would be shared with Benzie Leelanau. Because the medical director is the Health Department of Northwest Michigan employee. And so more or less, I mean, that has been going on, has been happening. All that information is shared anyways, and it's subject to FOIA and things of that nature. It just more or less identifies that and has the person sign that document stating that they understand that that is the arrangement. And that's really it. There was the attorney looked like they left something out when I reread it again. Of course, I read it 10 times and didn't catch it, but there is a little typo at the beginning. It says under purpose, says HDNW employees. It should be employs a medical director. And then the other one was under agreement period, which is section 5, that says this agreement shall continue for 5 years from, and then there's a missing part because it goes right into unless terminated earlier by either party. It should say this agreement shall continue for 5 years from the date of last executed signature of the parties set forth below. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's just more or less like when it starts.
So we're working on a agreement between the Health Department of Northwest Michigan and Benzie Leelanau. Do we need to have this same contract with District Health number 4? Why would we have different ones for each district?
Yeah.
Well, there currently is a different one. This is just the way the formula, the Exhibit 2 that I handed out. That's just the way the formula is broken down. There is currently a separate contract with DHD 4.
Shouldn't we,
So-
can we clean that up? Just have one
One.
contract?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the health department, I mean, we could use this as a template if everybody likes this and the attorney reviews it and doesn't have any issues. I think it's a good template, and then we're, basically, we did the contract, Benzie Leonard District Health Department's attorney. It was paid for, they more or less did the contract or redid it. And if our attorney's okay with it and this board is okay with it, we certainly could present that to DHD4
When
as
is
an
our
updated
current
contract.
contract up with the HD4?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Does maybe Dr. Meyerson knows? I know. We just looked at that, but we were focused on the Benzie Leonard one, so I didn't.
I would, if we're gonna do this, I would like to see us have
One.
one contract that covers all of it instead of
I
dancing
don't
around
know
with
that you
two
can
different
though, because you're
contracts.
talking about two different entities. You're talking about Benzie Leonard's Health District and you're talking about District Health Department number 4. They're two separate entities.
Right, but they could still, Dr. Meyerson's contract with them could be the same for both. The numbers over here that we
No,
just got.
I understand what you're
the-
saying. And
Right.
I think that's what Dan's talking about with the template. It'd be a good template to send to
Right,
District Health
correct.
Department number 4, but their attorney may say, no, we're not agreeing to clause
Right, yeah.
14.
Well, that would
So-
be down the road. So.
Right. That
Right.
was my question about when that contract actually expires, if it's something we need to address.
I want to say when we talked about it, it was something that, it was done a while ago and then it just keeps on renewing automatically unless there's. Right, right. That was my recollection. So it basically has been renewing automatically.
Okay.
But I think it would be good to, this is an updated, more modern contract that has, different language in there that's more protective of both parties. And then, one of the other things that was added in here is like if Benzie Leonard, for this contract in particular, if they had a performance issue, like if they said, hey, our medical director is not, we're trying to get a hold of him, doesn't get back with us, he's not living up to the, the requirements that we need, that there's a provision in here that they let the chair of this board know that that's going on, that there's some notification. And I think that's a good thing. And that could be the same for DHD4.
Mr. Mapes.
So I'm don't want to assume, but I'm assuming that DHD4 and Benzie Leland are in agreement with these numbers as well.
They don't have these numbers were just redone with new census numbers. They didn't change that much. But we just redid the formula. And that's why it wasn't sent out in the packet, because I went to go put it in the packet and realized that the numbers were 2010 census and instead of 2020. And then also the budgets, are supposed to be based on the most recent budget, that we have finalized budget. So we had to look that up, and anyways, that's why I handed it to you today. So yeah, they are aware of that.
We're just assuming they're going to agree to it.
They already have agreed to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are these numbers set in stone and these are going to be the numbers for the next 5 years, or are they going to be like in 2025, there'll be new census?
They're based on the 10-year census, the main census.
So these
the-
numbers won't change for the next 5 years,
the census numbers won't change for the next 5 years.
but the budget numbers will.
The budget numbers will.
So it'll be increased.
It just changes the percentages of each share, so to speak.
But it'll still be increased.
It doesn't increase the, well, the total amount would increase with, cost of living increases and things like that. And as expenses increase, like mileage and other travel related expenses. So that total number would increase, but the percentages, even with the old Exhibit 2, I think the Benzie Leonard percentage went up 1 percentage point, for instance. So, I mean, I think they're not going to change drastically, but they could change, based on what the budget is, and what the census is. But not in the next 5 years because the census will be the same using
But
the
the health
2021.
department budget here is 18 million. What's 2025 budget?
Right. So that would change assuming everybody's budget is going to go up likely. It could change the percentages a little bit of how it's shared.
Would it change the percentages or would it change the dollar amount?
It changes the dollar amounts based on salary, fringe, and expenses. So that
No.
changes every year, and it's in the contract that says that every October that will be
Okay.
based
but
on that new number.
What I'm
Right.
asking, Dan, is
Yeah.
The top paragraph is 50% is based on the population of the 2020 census. Those numbers aren't going to change.
Right.
The percentage on the next paragraph down, 50% based on the budget of 2023, those percentages wouldn't necessarily change, but because of increase in budgets, the dollar figures would change. Is that correct?
Well, if the dollar figures exchange, let's say, for instance, DHD4, let's say they start doing some huge program where their budget increases by 2 million, right? Their share is going to be higher and everybody else's share is going to be lower if that happened,
Okay.
because it's all based on 100%, right? So
So
If-
let me go back. What's our budget for 2025?
we don't know. It changes every year.
Okay.
Well, we approved of a budget.
Right. We have
Oh,
our
for
budget.
2025, right? I thought I was thinking in 5 years. Never mind.
So what happens, I think your question, Dawn, is what happens the second 50% based on a budget of 23? Every year, we're going to go back and we're going to look at our budget. We're going to look at DHD4's budget and we're going to look at Benzie Leelanau's budget. And these percentages will probably change slightly from year to year. So that piece will change annually almost.
Okay,
It-
so what's our
it's like-
budget number for 2025?
I don't know what off
I
the top
thought it
of my
was
head.
32 million.
It's 32 million in total, but you have to take out the DCN portion because
Yeah.
we're the only ones that have a dental section.
Okay, so this does not include dental.
Does not include
Correct.
dental.
Okay, so
And
let's just say that it's 32 million. Is that gonna change the 63%? Or is the 63% still gonna stay the same and we just double the amount of money we're gonna end up paying,
No, the
No.
63% could potentially change.
depending on the other budgets?
Correct.
Correct.
right.
And
It's the piece of the pie, basically. Like out of a pie, what is the ratio that everybody has to pay based on their budget?
so if our budget keeps increasing and theirs stay roughly the same, we're gonna be paying a lot more money.
Correct.
That
But
was,
I highly doubt
question.
theirs will stay the same
okay.
based on what we've seen in the past.
Any further questions? Would anyone like to make the proposed motion?
I will.
Mr. Van Alstine, go ahead.
I move to approve the amended professional health services agreement for the medical director between the Health Department of Northwest Michigan and Benzie Leelanau District Health Department, pending legal review, with an addition that we need to move forward with making this for all three groups. So I would like to charge that with that to get this set up. So District Health Department number 4's contract is the same as the one we're approving today.
Okay, there's a
Give us
motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I like the idea of having all the
Right.
contracts.
New contract.
Can we have Mel, did you get that? Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments?
So will we need to approve of that contract in December?
Whenever they get it ready with the.
December
Potentially.
31st it renews?
Potentially.
But we would there's probably something in it that says we have to notify them 30 days in advance or something like that.
Well, I think we'd have to look at the contract to see what it says. about terminating it or redo. I think you can, redo the contract at any point. I can reach out to the health officer at District 4, Denise Bryan, and just let her know that we'd like to redo the professional services agreement contract. And send this to her. I can insert the DHD4 where it says Benzie Leona. It's all the same.
Yeah.
And just send it to her and have her attorney take a look at it.
Great.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you actually happen to know who the attorney was.
I don't, maybe, Josh, do you know who the attorney is for DHD4? Okay.
Be really handy if it was Matt Cross, but I doubt it.
Well, then could he do that? I don't know.
No, he probably couldn't. He'd probably be conflicted out. All right.
Right.
We have a motion in a second. Any further discussion? We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Henkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason. I'm sorry, Commissioner Levanway.
Yes.
Commissioner Turnbull.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that moves us to public comment. Again, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. We would ask you to step to the podium, state your name, where you reside. I'll give you 3 minutes and I'll give you the friendly 30-second warning when your time is about to expire. Would anyone like to address the Board of Health? Okay, hearing none, public comment is now closed. Commissioner comments, Mr. Van Alstine,
Nothing.
Ms. Levanway,
No, I have nothing.
Mr. Mapes, Mr. Aaron's,
All set.
Mr. Chamberlain.
Yeah, I got something to say. I just want to share on October 13th, I was in here, the passing of Larry Levingood. He spent 41 years of his life in environmental health county for the health department. He dealt with water contamination in the 80s, which led to helping the city of Charlevoix improve the water system. It deeply saddens me again for his family and the time he did for the health department. I just wanted to recognize him.
Thank you, Josh. Henry.
I'm just wondering, maybe Melanie was testing to see if I was.
I'm thinking, I'm gonna be honest with you. I almost asked Melanie if she's had enough caffeine yet today, but that's okay.
That's all.
Oh,
Mr. Turnbull.
I just wish everybody a happy election. Get out there and vote. It's, a practice of freedom, and just want to say happy election day to everybody.
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
may I say a word?
No.
Come
You-
on, just a
you want-
minute.
Here we
Go ahead, go.
All right.
ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, this is my last Board of Health meeting and I just really appreciate my time working with each and every one of you. I have a great deal of respect for each of you. You serve your communities well. And just, a lot of respect within the communities, all the Board of Health comments are received, whether they were maybe a little critical of the health department or supportive. I appreciated all the comments and just, take those in and try to do the best that we can. Right. So I think in the last couple of years, we've made a lot of progress and just appreciate working with all of you. And I will sincerely miss you.
When's your official last day here?
The
In person?
Friday, the 22nd.
Okay, so I personally am gonna miss Dan. Not to ding who our next health officer is gonna be or our interim, but Dan and I have had a number of conversations and emails and I'm gonna miss you. I think that Benzie Leelanau is very fortunate that they're getting a good, steady, positive leader. I would echo everything that Linda Yarrow said. You're a good guy, Dan, and we're gonna miss you here.
Thank you.
Having said that, I would also say, have a nice Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna be around until about the 18th of November. So if you have a question or concern, call Holly.
Well, you can call me until
You
the
can still call
25th.
Dan. Okay. Having said all of that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.